I don't think you can have integrity without accountability.
I feel like finishing well is something that is, I've heard some guys talk about it, but not a lot. You go from having a career and for some guys, a high-powered career, then you just stop. Where do I fit in now?
It's amazing, Mark, how few people know for sure.
Welcome to First and Focused, the podcast where faith meets leadership. I know you're going to put me on the spot. I don't know what you're going to ask me to say. I'm Mark Greaves, and in each episode, I sit down with business and industry leaders who put God first in their work and stay focused on building his kingdom through their calling. I could sit here and talk with you all day.
Keep up the great work, brother. The Lord is using you powerfully. I love you. I love watching what Jesus is doing in your life.
Welcome, everyone, to the First and Focus show, where we interview leaders from various industries who are putting God first in their life and also in their work. I'm your host, Mark Greaves, and today we are honored to be with my guest, Dr. Duke Heller. Duke, thank you for being on the show.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
For the record, I had to just cut Duke off because he was getting into a story that I'm sure I'm going to want to capture, and I was like, no, this is too good. We gotta save this.
Okay.
But we're officially recording. All right, before we get into this, you're going to do most of the talking today, which I'm excited about. Nobody needs to hear from me when we got somebody with a vault of wisdom sitting across the table like you do.
Okay.
But let me just hit you with this intro. You're a humble guy, so you probably wouldn't ever read any of this stuff about yourself, but I'm going to read it because it's pretty darn amazing. Dr. Alfred Duke Heller, you are a leader and pioneer in the area of dental implant surgery. Not only are your pioneering methods and materials still used today, you personally, it could be even way more than this, have placed over 20,000 implants in your decades-long career. You founded the Midwest Implant Institute in 1980, where you trained thousands of dentists in your methods. You're a past president of the Board of Oral Implantology, an honorary fellow at the American Academy of Implant Dentistry, and a fellow at the International College of Dentists. You've received several awards and recognitions for your achievements, including the AAID Lifetime Achievement Award. You started Dentists Helping Dentists in 2000, a peer-to-peer professional group where dentists can discuss issues that they're facing in not just their practices, but also their home lives. You are a published author of several books, a couple of which I've got here with me right now today. The leader of the May I Share movement, teaching others how to share Christ, a devout family man, husband, father, not so undercover evangelist, having led thousands to Christ through the various avenues that God's placed you in. What I miss?
Nothing.
Well, and most importantly, yes,
Yeah.
A lover and a follower of Jesus is how I know you. It kind of just as a question number one, I've never met anybody, I don't think, where Jesus just kind of like comes out of their pores. Like I feel like you can't contain it. And the way that your face lights up and the way that your eyes look and your smile just beams when you're talking about the Lord is something like I've never seen before. So
Thank you.
has it always been like that for you? Like,
Well, of course, I accepted Christ. It might be of value to know how I did that. I had a patient, Mark, that said to me, Dr. Heller, are you a Christian? I said, oh, yeah. Said, how long have you been one? I said, all my life. Said, you ain't one. I said, pardon me? He said, can you point to the exact time you accepted Christ? I said, Mr. Wood, you don't understand. I'm the dentist for the Methodist Children's Home. I'm the dentist for the High State Athletic Department. I'm on the building committee, and I work a day a month in the free dental clinic. He said, Dr. Heller, I didn't ask you what you did. I asked you, can you point to the exact time you accepted Christ? I said, Mr. Wood, I don't even know what you're asking me. And I asked, he says, well, I just want to tell you one thing. Don't take offense to this, but people like you are people we call Christian fakes. I said, what? And so I told the hygienist, I said, get that kook out of my office. But Mark, for 4 months, I couldn't get it out of my mind. I'd be jogging and I would think, Duke, what happens when you get to be 50 years old and your ladder's leaning against the wrong wall? What if you don't have enough information to make the right decision? So I'd finished jogging, came home, and it was on a Wednesday, and I said to my wife, I said, Wanda, they must have had a wedding up there tonight. She said, up where? I said, up at that church. Oh, she said, no, that's midweek service. I said, you telling me people go to church in the middle of the week? She said, yeah. Now, unbeknownst to me, Wanda had accepted Christ at age 10 at the East Side Methodist Church in Newcomerstown. I went to the West Side. I never heard the gospel. I said, well, let's go up there. So we did, Mark. And Pastor Jim Custer was leading the service. He said, if you have a teenage daughter and she's killed in an automobile accident, are you 100% sure where she's at? Oh, my goodness. I looked at Wanda and I said, what'd we get ourselves into? But you know, the rest of that sermon, I thought he was just talking to me.
Yeah.
And at the end, he said, if you don't know where your daughter would be, there's a good chance you don't know where you would be. You need to walk forward and give your life to Jesus. Well, Mark, I'd never heard of Billy Graham. I'd never heard of an invitation. I stood up, beat the knees of the people. I went down, associate pastor came. He looked at me. I didn't know what to say to this guy. He said, oh, there's an area you want to turn over to God. I said, yep, that's it. He says, well, let's go in the back. Well, we went in the back. He looked at me. He said, now, your name again? I said, Duke Heller. Well, Duke, how long have you known the Lord? I said, all my life. He said, what? You've never done it, have you? I said, I guess not. What do I have to do? Admit you're a sinner, ask Christ to forgive you, ask to become Lord of your life. That was the week before Easter, 1972. I really got vaccinated. I'm telling you, I went out with my 3 best friends who happened to be dentists. I said, listen, sucker, you're a sinner. I know we done it together. You need Jesus in your life. So
how'd that go over?
Mark, well, all of them refused. All of them did come. No, one of the 3 did not accept Christ. But I, as you had stated in the bio, I trained thousands of dentists in implant dentistry. Yes, it was the first implant institute in the United States, but my goal was to share Christ. So when doctors would bring their patients and their staff, I could sit the staff down, go over the treatment that we had just done on one of their patients, and I just pulled out that little brochure. So there were times we'd lead the whole table to Christ. There were other times nobody accepted Christ. But there are going to be a lot of dentists in heaven.
It's unbelievable to hear because, I've got all kinds of questions here. I'm just going to go off script, though. I think that there's so many people who they discount their ability to go share the gospel in the place where God has them. So he obviously gifted you in this area of dentistry.
Right.
I've read up about your time in the military and how you came up with some of this stuff at Ohio State. That didn't come out of nowhere.
No.
Obviously God specifically gifted you that way.
I agree.
But the avenue that he created for you to share Christ was through the thing that he gifted you to do. I feel like so many people miss that. They feel like they need to keep it separate.
Well, whether I talked to 1,000 dentists or I was asked to speak in a church very large, I started the sermon or my dental talk same way. I'm in full-time ministry. I just do it as a dentist. And in the dental community, I'd say, if you don't think God called you to be a dentist, you ought to get out of dentistry. Because he called you not only to serve people, but he called you to have you tell them about his son.
Yeah.
And at national meetings, they used to say, are you going to start out the same way? I said, I'm starting it out the same way. Well, we have Muslims, we have Jews. I said, so when they have enough knowledge to stand in front of 1,000 people, they can talk about Allah.
Yeah. I guess that's funny because, you used your credentials and your know-how
I did.
Gave you the credibility to be able to talk about whatever the heck you wanted.
Absolutely.
But you used that not to talk about yourself and not to talk about, the thing they were there to hear. partially you took that opportunity to tell them about Jesus.
Amen, brother.
And I think that's at the end of the book, one of the last things Jesus said was like, "Hey, go do that." And he never put an asterisk next to the location or the time or the place. He just said to go do it.
Correct.
And I feel like you've lived it.
Well, thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Let me ask you this: how did you know that dentistry was the thing to do? Because it's become the gateway for you bringing people to the Lord. But how did you figure that out?
You know, of course, we know that God directs our steps, even when we don't know Him personally. In the 8th grade, Mark, I went to our dentist. I was fascinated watching the guy. I later found out he was a horrible dentist. He didn't take X-rays. If you went to him long enough, everybody ended up in dentures because he was. But I so enjoyed watching him work. Even in the 5th and 6th and 7th grade, I would, at recess, ride my bike up, stay there for 15 minutes just watching him work and go back. So God put that desire in my heart. And in the 8th grade, I said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And I never varied from it. Yeah, I never varied from it.
So the bio I just read, it seems to me like it would take a considerable amount of time to achieve all of those results. I mean, just the sheer number of implant surgeries you did had to be eats up a ton of time. I mean, there's just a lot of time you spent on your profession, but I know that being a husband and a father and cultivating your family was also important. How did you balance that throughout the years to make sure that you had time to prioritize around family?
Well, one of the ways I was able to do that, I had a mentor, I'm sure you've heard of him, Zig Ziglar. I knew Ziggy for 28 years, and for 20 years, he mentored me. And I recall after knowing him about 8 years, I asked him, would you mentor me? And he said, well, under 2 conditions. One, you must start 4 books a month and finish 2. I said, Ziggy, I don't think I can do that. He said, I just won't do it. We won't work with you. I said, really? I said, okay, what's the other thing? You must have accountability in your life. And I've since coined a phrase. I don't think, Mark, you can have integrity without accountability. If some other man is not holding you accountable for whatever it is, if we think we can do it just with God, I think Satan loves to hear that. So one of the things that Ziggy taught me was to skeletonize my calendar. And the most important thing in my life, it was my family. The last book I wrote, Helping Men Finish Well at Any Age, I took a quote from Zig, you must spend your life investing in the people who be sitting in the front row of your funeral. Mm-hmm. So to do that, you have to manage your calendar. So I would skeletonize my calendar, and I started out with the Franklin Planner to start with, and uses color coding. Now, with the iPhone, etc., I'm able, if I put down, like I put down today at 1:30 to come for this interview, and that's in purple. So when I get invited places, that's in purple. The blues are my family. Like every Thursday night, I went to dinner with my wife or my children. So even though I'd be willing to serve and help you, if you called up and said, Duke, I really got to get with you, I'd say, well, he said, how about Thursday night, 6 o'clock? I'd say, well, let me tell you what I've got open. I said, now, if it's really important, Thursday night at 9:30, I'll see you can come to my house. Or tomorrow morning at 5:30, which is best for you? They will pick. If he says, well, I can't come tonight, I'm still going to give him 2 choices. Well, we got 5:30 tomorrow or lunch on Tuesday. Which one works for you? I'm willing and was willing to see and serve people, not at the expense of my family. So consequently, my family, I never missed an athletic contest or anything. And my son was a very good athlete and played 3 sports. My daughter rode horses. I didn't miss anything they did. Why? Because I put that in the calendar. And I think I've been able to help a lot of pastors who are very guilty of taking care of other people's children, not their own.
Yeah.
They do that because they don't have a system. One of the beauties of this, I was just fortunate. I did a men's retreat for about 7 men. And one of the things we taught them is immediate prayer. So a lot of times if somebody said, I just found out my wife's got cancer, we're going in for treatment, will you pray for her? I said, yes. Now, I'll put their name in my calendar, Mark, and I make it green. So every day when I go to my calendar, like the 17th of December, I have 13 names in there. These are immediate. So every day I pray for those people. So when I see them, or I will email them and say, okay, been praying for your wife. How can I best pray for her? So organization comes managing your calendar. We all got time to do what we want to do. And my first book, Your Body, His Temple, had to do with exercise, diet, nutrition. So exercise has always been a big part of my life. And so,
I love the system aspect of it, though, because I think a lot of guys miss that. Like, you can have as many good intentions as you want in the world, but if there's not systems around those intentions to make sure that they happen, you can lose focus real quick.
Real quick, yeah.
And the enemy wants to steal your focus. I mean,
I think the enemy loves to have you doing really good things, but it gobbles your time up away from your family and away from your faith.
Yeah.
So if you don't like the blue is my family, the blue is also the different Bible studies I'm in. After losing my wife, now I'm in 8 men's Bible studies. I do that so I bump into 174 men a week. They give me an opportunity to invest in their life.
The fact that you know the numbers, just by themselves, is incredible.
Well, thank you.
All right, you mentioned Zig Ziglar, and in reading your book, I have this the last paragraph of his foreword. I just want to read it because I know that you do this, and I know that you've brought tons of people to Jesus in all these different places, and I think you do it in this method. He says, most important, we need to remember that we are the only Bible some people will ever read, so the example we set is critically important. We have to walk the walk as we talk the talk. It's exciting to know that that God's promises permits us to have opportunity to influence people for the kingdom. So the fact that we are the only Bible that some people will read, you've already mentioned it. It's not like people are just going to show up at a dental conference and say, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about just opening up the Bible right now.
You're right.
But they see you.
Right.
Is this part of how Zig mentored you? Did he live this way? What was the...
Well, Ziggy and I did a lot of ministry together, Mark. We used to put on golf tournaments, and we'd have 15 non-Christians and 15 Christians. And we'd go for Wednesday afternoon, Friday, Saturday, come home.
Now, hold on. Did they know they were signing up for one of those 2 categories?
All they knew was they were going to go and play golf with Zig Ziglar.
So
we had 15 non-Christians and 15 Christians. So usually they're paired together in the cart, right?
Yeah.
And so Zig would talk on Wednesday night using God in business. I would do that brochure Thursday morning. And so then Thursday night, Zig would talk. Friday morning, I would do letters from dead, which taught men how to write letters. And we never were together. We didn't lead somebody to Christ. I mean, multiple people. simply because it just flowed out of us. It was part of us. And, you and I need to be the very, very best we are in our profession.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the best, people want to learn what you did in your profession. They'll listen to you then. Yeah. And so God had given me some skill, but I did a lot of research and I helped find a material growth bone. And so I was so fortunate that God would allow me to be used in dentistry. And in my lectures, I would just say, if you make an incision in tissue, pull it back, put your implant in, and put your tissue back together. If you think anybody but God's going to heal that, you're a fool. People, whether I was in Iran, Iraq, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, I use that terminology all the time. You and I have the capability of sharing Christ with people right in our profession by what we say.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, it's there. We
I got to get this on for our listeners. I've got this brochure.
Okay, buddy.
And I'll never forget when you took me through it the first time, of just how incredibly simple it was. Can you just walk me through it? Like, I'm a new believer.
I certainly can.
Because I know it's on your site, and we're going to share, the resources and everything in the links to this episode. But I just think the value of watching someone who has literally led more people to Christ than I personally probably even know. I just want to watch you do it.
Okay. Yes. The beauty of this, and it came from Zig Ziglar and Jim Custer and my wife and I, because we're so enthused about sharing Christ, we used to teach a 6-week course twice a year at Grace Brethren for 8-9 years. Everybody in the class, Mark, they led somebody to Jesus in that 6 weeks. But I'd see you in the hallway, and I'd say, Mark, tell me about your mother-in-law. You remember? I said, have you shared Christ? No. I said, well, you know how to do it. Why haven't you done it? Well, I'm fixing to get ready to commence to start. I forgot those scriptures. So I was really discouraged. I called Ziggy up. I said, we've got to find a way. I said, we got to have a technique. He said, okay. So we picked a date. He flew up from Dallas.
You're talking to the sales guru.
Oh, yeah.
Worldwide sales
And
guru.
so we sat down at a Chinese restaurant, Pastor Jim and Ziggy, and he said, Duke, we're going to take an 8.5 by 11 sheet. We're going to fold it. We're going to tell a story, and we're going to put all the scriptures in there. So he came up with the idea, and you'll notice it says, may I share something with you that somebody else shared with me. That made it easier for me to understand. So you're not even in the formula. So if we look at the dynamics, may I share something with you somebody shared with me, that made it easier for me to understand. So I've never had anybody on an airplane, park bench, that ever said, nope, I don't want to know it, because it's what somebody else told. And then we just kind of open it up and we say, well, my friend John said to me, Duke, when you die and go to heaven, and God says, well, I should let you in, what are you going to do? How are you going to get in? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, do you know it's not entirely your fault? You're a sinner. I said, what are you talking about?
That's a crazy thing.
Yeah. I know when I lies to it. It says, no, it's not entirely your fault. I said, well, whose fault is it? He said, it's your parents. I said, my parents? That doesn't even make any sense. With that, he opened this brochure up and he said, Duke, would you draw 2 stick people and make one of them a female? So if you want to do it, just draw 2 stick people and make one of them a female. And then he said to me, that's Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve had complete fellowship with Jesus. There's just one tree they couldn't eat out of, and we know what happened. They ate it. And when they disobeyed God, Mark, what would we call that?
Sin.
Would you write sin in that little box by man there and then draw 2 more stick people? Anyway, that's it. This would represent babies that are born ever since Adam and Eve, Mark. And every baby born is born with that sin in them. The reason my son is a sinner is because of Wanda and I. The reason I'm a sinner is my mother and dad. Would you please write the word holy underneath God? Right over there, yes. Now, a holy God cannot associate with sinful man. But people say, yeah, but I want to go to heaven. Well, some people say, well, just do it through baptism. Just sprinkle them as a baby. That'll get you there. Others say, oh, no, you got to wait till they make a commitment, and then you got to triple dip them backwards 3 times. Some people say, you better go to communion every time you walk in the door. Others say, once a quarter's fine. Some say, I'm a member of a certain church. That'll get me to heaven. What do you think, Mark, is the number one thing that most people would say is necessary to get to heaven? What do you think it would be?
I think most people probably say doing the right thing.
That's it. Good works. Would you write that there?
In this box?
Yes, good works. So in this example, if these bridges fall short and the individual doesn't go to heaven, where they go?
Hell.
Would you write the word hell in that? Yeah. Tell me, what do you think hell is?
If I had to describe it, I'd say it's the absence of God. Like
Okay, and we know there's darkness there, there's heat, but God got in the bridge building business. Now open up the whole brochure. Yeah, and that bridge is called Jesus Christ. You'll notice there it says John 14:6. I'm the way, the truth, and life. No man come to the Father except through me. In other words, there's only one way to get there. Can I ask you a personal question? Do you know anybody that doesn't want to go to heaven?
Not intentionally, no.
Okay. Would you draw an arrow that goes from there to there? Thank you. This right here, these 2 people could represent you, maybe grandchildren, next door neighbors that want to get over there. It could represent a guy in the Bible by the name of Nicodemus. Looked Jesus right in the eyeball. They lived the same time. Said, Jesus, how do I get over there? Jesus said, you must be born again. Said, that's silly. I can't crawl back in my mother's womb. No, Jesus, seriously, how do I get over here? And all Jesus did, repeat the same thing right back to him. You must be born again if you're going to see the kingdom of heaven. Now, Nicodemus assumed Jesus was talking about a physical birth, when in fact, he's talking about a spiritual birth. So if you and I go over here, Mark, to a factual Christian, they believe there's a God. They believe Jesus is the Son of God. They believe they're a sinner. They believe that Christ died on the cross. They believe he was resurrected. And you look at this people and said, every single one of those is true, but the last part of this pamphlet says you don't make it. You got to think I'm a kook. You believe all those, as you should. There's 2 parts to being born again. One is that you got to believe in your heart. That's all those facts. But the second part, you got to confess with your mouth, and the last word, that results in salvation. So then you just fold the folder, and the lady speaks for herself. Can you point to the exact time you accepted Christ as your Savior? And so people, yes, no, I don't know. And so if they don't know, I say, well, here's the 3 things involved. You got to admit you're a sinner. You do agree you're a sinner. You got to ask Christ to forgive you. And the last part, you got to ask to become Lord of your life. You got to be willing to give your life up to let Jesus run it. tell me exactly when you did that. And so if the individual can't do that, I'd say, well, is there any reason you would not want to do it right now? So in a restaurant, on an airplane, a park bench, Ziggy used to say, Duke, you got the greatest product in the world. Call for the sale. We share Christ with people, and they say, well, go to church, maybe you'll walk forward. No. Let's do this. As a matter of fact, Mark, 3 years ago, I did a men's retreat down in Hocking Hills. And I don't know, 50, 60 men there. And some gentleman said, could you just shorten the gospel up just a couple sentences? I said, oh, yeah. He said, you can? I said, yeah. I said, this will work with your sons, your daughters. It'll work, could work on your wife if she doesn't know the Lord. The guy at the barber shop, at the post office. These 2 sentences work every time. He said, well, what are they? The very first sentence, Mark, is, can I ask you a personal question? When you do that, I've never had anybody say, no, you can't do that. They always say, well, sure, what is it? Number 2, can you point to the exact time you accepted Christ? I do it at the post office. I do it I just had a doctor's appointment.
You did it to your doctor?
Oh, of course. I do it 3 or 4 times a day.
See, I love
it's so easy to do. As an example, I was at the post office, and as you know, there's always a line, and I love to, whoever stand beside me, start the conversation this way. Hello, how are you? How's your world? Now, that's a lot different than saying, how you doing? Because everybody says, oh, I'm doing fine. Well, you're not doing fine. But if you say, how's your world? They say, well, let me think about that. And I said, well, I think it's going pretty good. I said, well, could I ask you a personal question? Well, sure. What is it? Can you point to the exact time you accepted Jesus? Well, yeah, I think so. I'm Catholic. And so, yeah, and I said, well, did it involve these 3 things? Now, when I'm telling you that, understand, Mark, there's 5 other people in line. Everybody stops what they're doing. On their phones, they stop. They're just listening. And so I remember this one lady. She said, well, I'm Catholic, and all Catholics go to heaven. And I say, well, I don't think you could find anything in the Bible that would support that. And she said, well, I'm very comfortable with that. I said, well, okay. Well, then she went up. Then I went over, and I mail out books every day almost. So I get outside. Well, that lady's waiting for me. She said, what is this you got to have at the exact time? So I tried to explain to her. She said, well, I still think all Catholics go to heaven. I said, well, I don't think that's true. With that, another lady came out, and she says, that was wonderful. Can I give you a hug? And I said, well, yeah. And she said, to talk about Jesus in the post office, that's great. I said, can you point to a time you accepted Christ? She said, I sure can. It was da-da-da. This is how it happened. So I turned to the lady and said, see, she can do it. Are you sure you don't want to do it right now? Nope, I'm convinced. I said, okay. So we all went our separate way. I do it in the barber shop. It's so easy to do. Those 2, yeah. And I would say I have 100 men now in all these Bible studies. They do it once a day. The amount of men that are leading people to Christ at Total Fitness or whenever they work out, a guy has shared Christ with so many people up in Cleveland where he works out. He's now switched into a new facility because now he can start over and witness to them. No, I'm telling you, every single week he leads somebody to Christ.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, 2 sentences.
Okay, I got to ask you this. How old are you?
I'm 88.
Yeah, okay, you're getting close to 90.
Yeah, I want to go home. I want to go home.
Well, yeah, God's obviously still got use for you down here because you're still
I
teaching us
guess.
how to do it.
Yeah.
So you just had a men's retreat that had almost 100 people at it.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't seem like you're retiring very well.
Oh, well, I really am. I'm using the talents God gave me. And after I lost my wife, it's one of the most detrimental things can happen to you. And so I knew God had perhaps other things. I had so many men, many of them in my profession, that would sit across from me, Mark, and say, Duke, how can I get it so wrong? I practiced 35, 40 years. We bought this place down in Florida. We lived down there 12, 15 years. My wife got sick. We come back to our support base. I just realized I never saw one basketball game of my grandson. I'm going to his wedding, and I've never met his fiance.
Mm.
You see, Ziggy's right. You must invest your life in the people who be sitting in the front row of your funeral. Because when they come back, it isn't the same when you get out of somebody's life for 12 years. Yeah, they come and visit you for a week in this.
Well, so this is what you meant by, before we started recording, I said, hey, you got to stop because I want you to share that. You talked about, working for a period of time, hanging it up, and then just retiring on a beach somewhere. And you're like, that's not really the formula.
Most people, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And guess who are the worst? Pastors. Let me tell you why. A pastor will preach for 40 years. He's loved. And so he says, I want to slow down and retire. They get a new pastor in. He's there for about a year. And finally, the old pastor who's been teaching an adult Sunday school class says, well, honey, let's let him run his church now. We're going to leave. Mark, they go sit, usually in their denomination, in the back row of a church to listen to the sermon. They just don't get involved anymore. And Erwin Lutzer, who wrote a foreword for me, who was the pastor up at Moody Bible, he won't even speak now except to pastors because he said, Duke, they just fade away into the woodwork. They've got all this knowledge they could use, and they don't do it because they don't know how to retire.
Is it because they're tired, or is it because
I don't think they've got a let me call it a template or a that's why I'm going to be doing a podcast series, Mark, of ministries that men, if they get involved, they're going to finish their lives better.
Yeah.
It's Campus Crusade for Christ, Celebrate Recovery, LifeWise. There's so many ministries. I'm going to have...
Well, these resources are so timely. Like, obviously, How to Start a Kingdom Conversation was the book I read out of, Zig's quote, and then
Yes.
the May I Share movement. This one, Helping Men Finish Well at Any Age. I feel like finishing well is something that is... I've heard some guys talk about it, but not a lot. A lot of guys feel like they finish and then they're finished with their career. Now they're moving on to just be kind of put out to pasture and rest until it's time to go home to heaven. You don't see it that way, I don't think.
Absolutely, I don't. And not daily, but I would tell you at least 4 times a week, somebody calls up and said, Duke, I've just finished reading your book. My wife and I have sat down. I now know how to retire. I'm going to get involved. Before that, money is such a curse if we use it just for our own pleasure. Obviously, we all need money. You need it for ministry. You need it for your children and education. But if you got enough, now let's find a way we can go serve. Like for 14 years, Mark, I've been working with the Refuge, drug and alcohol. And this isn't quite a big deal, but every Tuesday, I take 1 to 2 men out. Ends up costing me about $500 a month because I take them, okay, anything you want, you order. Now, these are men that have just really been beat up. Almost every one of them, their lives have been saved with Narcan. I don't think I've ever had a guy go 13 months in the program that didn't tell me I was dead and they brought me back. And with fentanyl, it's worse now. It's even in marijuana. So consequently, you know, what a thrill to take a kid out and just listen to him for an hour and a half. Then we go have a Bible study. Well, anybody can do that. They can get a hold of me. Come on, go with me. I'll buy your dinner. Well, they can do that at a different time. They could go on Wednesdays or Thursdays. Because these young men, they got the same talents you and I got.
Yeah.
They got their brains screwed up on drugs. But 92% of those people, Mark, have no father influence.
That's
92%. So, see, you could fill in as a substitute father.
Yeah.
What's it cost you? One night a week. Oh, my goodness. The joy you'd get out of doing that. I don't think men know where to go. So hopefully my friend Sam Kuhn and I were putting together this facility in my house so that we can interview ministries, hopefully to get men involved and or at least have a place they can go find a ministry.
I also feel like there's, for some of the older guys that I know, what wonders that would do for just their psyche and their self-worth, because you know, you go from having a career and you know, for some guys, a high-powered career where you're on top of the world, or you know, it feels like that for a period of time. You've mastered whatever subject matter it is, or whatever your profession is, and then you just stop. And it's, where do I fit in now?
Right.
And having a real purpose in life and being able to impact other people for especially for Christ, impact their eternity. What other greater influence is there than that? It's pretty phenomenal. What do you say to to the person who's in business, the guy or gal who's in, you know, they're doing their stuff, but they're doing their faith and their work completely separate? Obviously, we've kind of, you know, beat a horse. You didn't do that in dentistry. There's a lot of folks around town who are doing a great job of using their work and their industry to be a conduit for Jesus. What do you say to the ones who are just like a little embarrassed because they don't know how someone's going to react, or maybe they're introverted and they're not somebody that feels comfortable engaging in that kind of a conversation? How would you encourage them to go live more boldly?
I don't think many people know that much about hell. I mean, if you study hell and to find out that, number one, yeah, it's hot, it's dark. Think about, have you ever gone in a cave and they turn the lights out? If your children were with you, in about 45 seconds, they'd say, Daddy, tell somebody to turn the lights on. When the lights go out, our proprioception feels like pressure, like it's pushing in on our ear. Well, that's what hell's like. There's pressure, but there's total darkness. You will never see light. On top of that, it's hot. So nobody would willfully want somebody to do that. So whether I know the person or I don't, but the thing that's the saddest for me is that I have elders I've worked with for years that they're not absolutely positive their grandkids know Jesus. I say, what? Well, you know, I can't interfere, and you know, it's up to my son now to lead his own children to Christ. Well, listen, you can ask questions when you're fishing with your grandson, playing golf with him. You need to find out, wouldn't it be horrible to have a blood relative in the casket? And somebody says, well, I wonder if Aunt Mary knew the Lord. I'd look at him and say, why don't you know she knows the Lord? Did you share Christ with her? It's amazing, Mark, how few people know for sure, kids, grandkids, and in-laws, if they know Jesus. And I got to ask why. Just ask the question. People beat around it. It's Satan's way of saying you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about religion. Nothing can be further from the truth. We talk about both of them all the time. I just bring religion up immediately.
Yeah, I would say we talk about them all the time, but typically the only people we already know agree.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
us.
Yeah. See, most of us live in a Christian ghetto. All of our friends are Christians.
Yeah.
Okay. And I purposely didn't do that. I coached Little League football, Little League baseball. I was very big in scouting, and I did activities. I took my faith with me. And in teaching whatever it was, baseball, football, and sometimes kids having a hard time, and I said, come over here. Would you mind? Let's just pray. I know you're really struggling because you can't block that guy across from you. Can we pray about it? So I would just do that. It's non-intrusive, and the kid felt so attached that the guy across from him, he's beating his brains in.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, he feels, well, Coach prayed with me. I ought to be able to do it. It's incredible how much his performance improves. Now, working with Woody Hayes and Bo Schembecker, yeah, they didn't do that. They expected you to do it. But when you're working with kids that are trying to find out if they even like the game, oh my, to stop or to say, you know what, I know you're struggling with some stuff at home, so with your permission, I'm going to pray for you. Bam, you already have an avenue, Mark.
It's pretty incredible. Have you ever gotten like pushback, especially in areas? What would you say to the person who's like, hey, I'm going to get pushback on this. I already know it, but it's worth it. It's worth going for it. But these are people that I've got to be around all the time.
Right.
So I love the subtitle here to the Kingdom Conversation book is sharing Christ with those closest to you. For those, whether it's people that you work with, your own family, neighbors, you're like, hey, the proximity isn't going to allow us to escape each other.
Correct.
So if this doesn't go so well, I'm still going to have to see you all the time. Did you ever get any kind of pushback? How'd you handle that?
Well, even though, now I had lots of relatives, mainly on my side, not Wanda, that just said, I don't want to talk about that. And I said, well, okay. Could you do me a favor? And they always say, well, yeah, what is it? I said, would you just pray that God would make himself known to you? Because I tell you what, I'm going to put that once a week. I'm going to pray God will make himself known. And they say, well, whatever. It's amazing. I would see him then at Thanksgiving or at the cottage, and I'd use that same, okay, so what's God doing in your life? And, said, Duke, I already told you I'm not interested. I said, yeah, I know. I'm still praying that God will make himself known to you. I have literally hundreds of people I see that I, over the last 50 years, have shared Christ with. They refused it, said, Duke, I'm not going to do that. And one guy, I just saw him and he said, Duke, you've been asking me that for 30 years. I said, yeah, I know. What are you going to do with him? If you just throw it out there, Mark, it's incredible. And pushback, very few people are atheists that don't believe. Mm-hmm. And when I find an atheist, I love them. They say, no, I don't believe in God. I said, you are kidding me. That's not true. Well, it is true. I said, no, it's not. He said, well, it is. I said, really? I said, well, that's incredible. I said, did you ever think that your fingerprints and my fingerprints are so different? How'd that happen? I said, you believe in that, what do you call that thing, evolution thing or something? He said, that's right. That's really what it is. I said, really? I said, man, you got more faith than I got. Do you know that they discovered in King Tut's tomb, that's about 5,800 years old, they had some acorns. And you know, modern science can take that acorn and build all the chemicals, and it looks exactly the same. Now, if you take the acorn from King Tut's tomb and the acorn from the science room, put it in the ground, which one grows? Well, I suppose you're going to tell me the one that's King Tut. I said, well, sure. Why? Because it came from what God created. Man can't create anything. You're not an atheist. Yeah, can I show you something that somebody showed me? It's amazing how many atheists have seen that. Now, most don't soften up because it's an embarrassment to them.
Yeah.
They've taken such a stand, especially if anybody else is there.
Mm-hmm.
Alone, they soften because I know what's truth, and they're not, they just cannot get through my feeling of truth.
I love it. And I love the way that your demeanor is even if someone's going to shoot you down, you don't count that as a big loss. You're doing what God asked you to do. So you're still able to see those people the next time and the next time and the next time, even as far as 30 years out,
Right.
and still be friendly and cordial.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're going to keep bringing it up.
I bring it up, and they know I'm going to bring it up.
How many of those folks have come back and circled around when there's a major event in their life and they're like, hey, you know what? I think it might be time. And you're the person who's brought it up enough times where they're coming to you saying, hey,
They
dude.
do. I get that, fortunately, all the time. But I've been doing it for 50 years.
And there's probably people you're still working on, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I've got people on my prayer list that I know have died. I always said, people say, well, Duke, how'd you like to die? I said, the most perfect way, if God would give me cancer and I would have 4 months to live. I've got a list, 200, 300, 400 people that didn't accept Christ that I pray for. I would get in a car, I would get a hold of them. I'd go to every one of their homes and say, listen, sucker, it's over now. I got 3 months to live. Are you going to accept Christ or aren't you? I'm not blowing smoke at you. That would be wonderful if God would do that with me.
Oh, I'm sure it would.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great.
It's just, not to blow smoke or anything, but when I talk to people like you, and there's not many. I have not met many whose heart's so on fire for the Lord, and you're so in love with what Jesus has done for you that you have to tell everybody else.
Yes, sir.
But there's a different kind of joy and peace that you kind of ride through life with that I notice. It doesn't seem like there's, whether it's the goods, the bads, the headlines, just the winds that blow all the time, week to week to week. You're focused.
I believe so.
Because you know where you're going and you know what you're called to do while you're here. Man, I think a lot of us could really benefit from that.
Right.
We get so sidetracked with all the various missions and things that we want to accomplish. Is there anything that you're trying to accomplish now where when you look at the future and you're like, hey, I know I'm 88, so the future ain't as long as it used to be, but this is what I'm still trying to get done. Is there anything that's exciting you?
One thing for sure, Mark, I'm building in my home a podcast room. And so I'd like to get a interview Ministries. We're going to have a YouTube channel and then have podcasts feed into that. So somebody helping men find ministries, get involved with prison, celebrate, whatever it is. And, just take the Worthington Christian football team. If you think you couldn't go over there as a retired person and help carry the dummies and help with those kids, why, there's so many ministries that could be done. So I thank God, and I think it's the last thing he's going to have me do, is to do that. And as I shared with you, I'm going to have the videographer. He's going to leave his stuff in my house so that I'm going to be able to do live streaming. I literally have 5,000 to 6,000 articles I've written about different Bible studies I've done. Well, I can have streaming with that. And once we get it set up and I learn to use it, then people like your ministry and others, if they need a place to do podcasting, just come over, use it, doesn't cost you anything. It's just sitting there. So I think God can use that. And my friend Sam, he is so excited about the potential of what this could do. Imagine men getting involved in prison ministry. Have you ever done that yourself?
Yeah.
And when they lock the
Powerful.
door and you go and they lock the second door, you go, oh, honey, I'm telling you. And the third door, until they let you out, brother, you are there.
The first time I ever did death row was a little intimidating.
Oh,
and,
I can only imagine.
I'm like, man, I think most of these guys in here probably killed somebody to be on death row.
Oh, no, they have.
And
Yeah.
and you're in there with 10 or 15 of them, and they take the shackles off, and they shut the door.
But isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
They appear to be kind and nice
Yeah.
as you and I.
It's because they've been born again.
They've been born again, brother.
After the first time I did it, it changed everything. Because
Yes.
you walk in, it's like, these aren't the same people
Right.
that did that crime.
Correct.
Jesus has got a hold of their heart. They're different people now.
Right.
Which if there's hope for them, there's hope for everybody.
Hope for everybody. And I think that's the beauty of me working in the addiction ministry.
Yeah. I got a couple rapid fires for you. You ready for this?
Please. Yes, sir.
All right. Meaning of life. What's the meaning of life?
I think the meaning of life is to share Jesus Christ. I can't think of anything I would tear it by saying you have to make sure that your blood relatives know Jesus. So the meaning of life is a relationship with Jesus. So that's the absolute number one thing. And then people that have invested in me, like I've got a lot of dental colleagues that have come alongside. They've helped me teach in foreign countries and et cetera. Well, I got to make sure they know Jesus. And if I make sure the faculty, what about the audience in Abu Dhabi, Kuwait? I need to at least tell them I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus died on the cross, believe he was resurrected. Nobody can dispute that Jesus was resurrected. Josephus, there's too much proof.
Mm-hmm.
All of the Muslim people in the Quran, Jesus is mentioned more than Allah. So everybody knows about Jesus. Well, you just don't get pushback. Now, being in some of those countries, my government said, now, Duke, you can't proselytize. You can't go to Iran, and I'm lecturing in dental schools there, and just tell people they need to accept Jesus. If you use the word God, you're okay. Well, people would come up to me, doctors, and they would look around and make sure nobody said, are you a Christian? I said, yes. I'd ask them to take me back to the hotel. Well, then I had a stack of these in books. So I would go through the brochure. Many of them only knew about Jesus. They didn't know they're supposed to make a commitment. Now, it's illegal to be a Christian in Iran. But at that time, let me say 15, 18 years ago, they estimated 1 million underground Christians were there.
Wow.
I've done this brochure in a restaurant in Iran, but I had to make sure that the waiter and the individual, he asked me, what's the difference between the Muslim faith and the Christian faith? That's the first thing out of his mouth. I asked the waiter, I said, now would you repeat it so I understand your question? So he did. Well, now I got two people. So, and I'm telling you, my guess is there was 100 people in this restaurant. And we were sitting at a table, and they had booze around the outside, Mark. Everybody stopped eating.
To listen.
And I went through this. They all were listening because they don't know anything about Jesus.
The seeds that were planted that day are unbelievable.
Yeah, the opportunity.
I think you're living that. All right, next rapid fire. What's the secret to a long and healthy marriage?
That's a wonderful question. And Wanda and I attended a lot of marriage counseling, whether it's family life, whether it's, and the reason we went to them, obviously it helped our marriage, but we did a lot of counseling with marriages that were in trouble.
Yeah.
And I would say Zig told me two things. If I would do these two things, we would have a wonderful marriage. And here's the very first one. When you come home from work, you come and sit down, ask your wife to sit at the kitchen table. You just look at her and say, honey, how was your day? Da, 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 da. She's going to tell you. She's been thinking all day how to tell you. Here's the second thing. After the meal, no matter what it tastes like, honey, that was a great meal. You take your plate over to the sink and you say, what could I do for you tonight that would make your life easier? Now, she's been thinking all day, Mark. She wants you to go to the pharmacy to get some medicine for the kids. But she doesn't know if you're overworked, if you're tired, da, 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 da. But by you volunteering that, so those two things I've taught for years, and I would come home and do that. I would listen to Wanda. She may say something like the dog come over and pooped in the yard next door, and I say, now, do you want me to do anything with that? Oh, no, I got it handled. I went over and told her, and she's going to keep her dog on the leash. See, we men want to fix stuff. So when they tell you what they're doing, for you to say, well, if you did this, no, don't do that. Do you want me to do anything with the information?
I was going to say, I'm tracking with you on all that, but that's where I go wrong. I jump right into
They don't want your opinion. They just want to tell you. And maybe you don't know this. Well, you might. But even in my last book, I say you have to bulletproof your marriage. And to bulletproof your marriage, here are the three criteria. Number one, a couple, if they read the Bible together 5 out of 7 days, if they pray together 5 out of 7 days, they go to church 3 out of 4 Sundays when they're home. 0.4, that's 0.4 out of 1,000 get divorced. So if that's the bulletproof, if that's the criteria, why don't we pray with our wives and we read the Bible with them and go to church with them? And the retreat, I had 4 pastors there, and they say the hardest thing for them to get their parishioners to do is pray with their wives. I'm telling you, elders, deacons, it's amazing how few pray with their wives.
No, it's it is an interesting thing. It seems like the easiest one, but it just comes and it goes and doesn't happen.
I don't know what it is, whether it's Satan or, but you know, I learned so much about Wanda listening to her pray.
Wow.
Because she'd pray about grandkids. She had information I didn't have.
Yeah.
So Lord help Corey when he's going to take his English test. I didn't know Corey is taking an English test. And
that's really, really good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So
no, that's I'm going to use that. That was all right. Last rapid fire question. What's the best thing about being a dad?
I think is to realize that that's your flesh and blood, those children out there. And God put me here to direct them to Jesus, but the most difficult thing is to live it. Yeah, I still want to give my kids, my oldest is 65, my son's 63, my daughter's 62. I still want to give them advice how to do stuff. In the car, no, go down this way. Dad, I got this. You see, you never get away from being a dad. And I think, but if our motive is to just, let's say, build a relationship and never offer advice unless you're asked it. especially with adult kids, because they got to raise their own family. We ask questions, and it was so much easier, Mark, when Wanda was alive, because we'd be in the car and we knew we were going to talk to a grandson. She would offer me questions, and her questions were better than mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think to be a dad, you just have to be totally sold out to Jesus, and you got to make sure you just give them information that hopefully they'll be sold out for Jesus. But when you made the comment, and you're correct, see, I share Christ, the results are left up to Holy Spirit. Doesn't bother me at all if somebody doesn't accept Christ. And I don't care if it's a blood relative. They say, no, I'm not interested. Okay. But you see, people assume if they share Christ, somebody ought to accept Christ. Don't do that. That's not up to you.
Yeah.
It's not up to you. God will bring him when he's ready. Next, who do I talk to?
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Such a good point. Well, I've resonated with so many things you say. The one that just recently resonated with me just like a second ago was, man, women do ask better questions. Because I come home all the time, and if it's somebody that my wife and I know, it's a mutual friend, and she'll say, oh, what'd they think about this? Oh, what's going on with that? Oh, what'd they say about this? And my answer is always like, oh, we didn't talk about that.
Right.
We didn't talk about that. She's, what did you talk about? I'm like, man, I don't know.
See,
random stuff, I guess.
And again, I learned this from Ziggy. Men think in accomplishments. Women think in relationships.
Yeah.
See, it isn't that women can't do things, Mark. They can. You and I have 7 things. We get to this, and we mark it off.
Yep.
The old endorphins. They do number 1. They start to do number 2, and they say, well, if I do that, I wonder how that's going to affect number 1. You and I'd say, who cares? You did number 1, get it out. We go down this list. They always think how it affects somebody. So it is true that the Bible says that we're the head of the household. All that means is I'm to serve Wanda, so she and I together before Jesus are equal.
Yeah.
I never, ever, now the thought that I ruled over her, that never even crossed my mind. I just wanted to serve Jesus with her, and with her relationship embodiment, she was more capable of doing that. And a lot of times I'm getting to, do you know Jesus, da-da-da, and she's sitting there saying, well, what Duke's saying is, and she takes the conversation really on a softer path, and they identified with her more than they identified with me.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's good. Well, listen, we're almost we're out of time. They're going to kick us out of the studio, but
thanks for asking me.
This has been an unbelievable treat for me.
Well,
and you've been a blessing to me.
Thank you.
I know you're a blessing to so many people around town. Thank you for what you do. I think the angels in heaven are they're up there celebrating probably every day that somebody has the courage to go do what you do. And, I love getting to know you. I love all the encouragement and all the knowledge you've poured out. So thank you for doing it. I'm excited for your does it have a name? Is it just the Duke Heller Show?
May I Share Ministries.
May I Share Ministries. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a link to it in the show notes for this one. And to those of you watching, if you want access to more of the resources, whether it's the newsletter, books, more shows, you can get them all at markgreaves.com. But thank you so much for being here, Dr. Hall.
You bet. Thank you, brother.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for watching the First in Focus show. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and then share with a friend.